I have often talked about the importance of embedding magic within a culture and making it feel as real to that culture as technology feels to us. If magic is common and used commonly, it should be as integrated as electricity in our homes in that culture. But if you really take that thread back, what impact would magic have on the rise of civilization? Would certain technological advances be replaced by magic? Is there ever an agricultural revolution? What does the Neolithic age look like? Today, I want to explore the concept of a civilization working through the ages of history with magic as an integral part. Welcome to another episode of Just in Time Worlds with your host, Marie Mullaney. If you like what I do here and you want to support the channel and get some cool merch with cool world building memes, check out my store on Spring, linked down below. You can get shirts, mugs, or even tote bags of all sorts with either the channel logo or some unique memes. Okay, enough of that. Let's get cracking with magic and the rise of civilization. First up, we should define what we mean when we say magic. For the purpose of our video, I created two basic magic systems, and I'll contrast how I think they will affect civilization. The one magic system I call spirit seal magic, and the other I call elementum consumption. So, starting with spirit seal magic. In this magic system, there are spirits that inhabit everything, and they can be importuned to undertake certain tasks. However, you need to know the right way to ask the spirit to undertake the task, so you need knowledge of the spell or prayer, whichever way you want to look at it, and the spirits require sacrifices. The more you want to break natural laws, the bigger the sacrifice required. So those are our limitations. On the elementum consumption side, the mage has to consume a special substance that gives them the capacity to manipulate an element for a portion of time. So, breathing in a smoke from burning a specific type of wood, let's call that wood the flame tree wood, gives the mage fire manipulation. The more of the smoke you consume, the more you can manipulate. And the same for the other items that you consume that give you elemental powers. So, eating water lilies gives you water manipulation. Eating rare earth powders gives you earth manipulation. And eating an animal that floats through the air, let's say that's some kind of aeroplankton type creature, or let's call it a sky jelly, that can give you air manipulation power. Okay. The limitation with elementum consumption obviously lies in getting the item, and then it's not super healthy to actually consume these items. So there is a limit of how much the mage can take before their body kind of gives up. Okay, so those are our two magic systems. And if you're enjoying the concept of this video, hit the thumbs up button. And let's talk about the impact these magic systems would have on the hunter-gatherer phase of prehistory. In the early days of humanity, the hunter-gatherers roamed vast expanses, searching for food, shelter, and warmth. And for my general views on this period, check out the information card for how to world build in the Stone Age. For this video, we're going to focus on the introduction of magic as per our two systems that we've defined. The first and biggest change is probably in control of fire. Controlling fire changed everything for us as a species. It did a couple of really important things. First, cooked meat gave us access to more calories, allowing us to do more in general. Fire also gave us protection from the wild, and perhaps most importantly, fire created the first hearths, as I spoke about in my video on hearths and homes. Now, hearths are where we gathered in communities and possibly where evolution took us down the path of becoming communal hunters and laid the groundwork for us to grow to the dominant species on the planet. This is speculative, but it does seem to have a chunk of evidence behind the theories of this kind of communal hunting being central to us becoming what we are. So, that being the case, both of these magic systems could give us earlier and more complete control over fire. With spirit seal magic, shamans or early magic users could implore the spirits to provide or control fire. They wouldn't have to wait for a lightning strike or to rely solely on friction. This would lead to more stable hearths and, as a result, more established semi-permanent communities. It wouldn't just be about warmth, it would be a beacon of society and cooperation. And of course, the same would apply to elemental magic system. I mean, you have control of fire, so you would have control much earlier than us with ours physically having to make fire. And I think the big difference between elemental consumption and the shamanic spirit seal one is that you would have an earlier division into social classes. Whoever first figures out how to importune the spirits in spirit seal probably keeps it secret and becomes more powerful in their tribe. I think with elemental consumption, it's harder to keep the secret of what you're doing when you gain control of fire. So it might be a more egalitarian tribe as a result. But either way, I think you're definitely looking at a society that becomes communal earlier than we did as a species, and therefore becomes the dominant species faster. It could also be that multiple human species might survive if they have this kind of earlier control of communal of fires and the earlier development of communities. Because there was a period when there were multiple human species on the earth. It's just that all of them are gone now and we're the only ones who survive. For whatever reason. I'm not saying we definitely unalived them all, but chances are pretty good we probably unalived some of them. So certainly it would have had a role in how fast we became communal and how fast we became the dominant species. But there is a second big impact that this kind of magic would have. And I think that that is the drastic reduction in the impact that the climate had on the Stone Age humans. Either of these magic systems would allow for shelters to be built faster. For example, a spirit-sealed shaman can importune the trees to bend into shelters, or an elementalist can consume rare earth powder and raise the ground to create an earthy dome. With magic, early humans wouldn't be at the complete mercy of the climate. Water manipulators could find or even draw out water sources during droughts, and fire manipulators would ensure warmth in cold snaps or even in the early ice ages. This kind of climate control would mean that migration patterns might change, and some areas previously deemed inhospitable could become home. In our own history, Europe's full colonization was made possible by inventing the needle. I'm honestly not joking. The needle with which to sew clothes changed everything. It allows us to make clothing that fit better and retained the heat, and that opened up Europe's northern cold regions. And it meant that when the ice ages came and we were in Europe, we were ready and could survive better than the other species who do not appear to have invented the needle like the Neanderthals. Can you believe that dominance of the species could really depend on the sewing needle? It's awesome. It's obviously, again, these are theories and I'm not an expert, so these are things that I understand from what I read and what I watch in documentaries and so on. But I mean, the sewing needle, man. It's amazing. Anyway, back to the video. With magic, we might not need the sewing needle. We might never invent it. Maybe we just wear simple fur wraps all the way into the modern age. But I think honestly, we probably would still have invented a needle just because it does make it easier to make cooler clothes, and humans, being the status conscious animals that they are, they do love their pretty clothes. However, we would certainly colonize colder places or drier places faster than we did in our own history, which brings us to an important question. Would these people with their magic go through an agricultural revolution? Or would they remain a semi-nomadic hunter-gatherer society? Let's first discuss 3 reasons why it wouldn't happen and what the consequences would be. 1. If spirits can be implored to ensure a successful hunt every time, or even to provide food directly, the motivation to switch to farming might be less. Why labor over a field when you can simply ask for a bounty? The same applies to using elemental magic to, say, fly over the land and find the game you need to survive. So, there might not be the pressure to farm due to the environmental pressures to live. Second, with elementum consumption, if a mage can simply consume earth powder and have crops rise from the ground, the slow process of traditional farming might seem redundant. Or the spirit of wild crops can be importuned to allow you to just gather the crops you need. So again, you have access to a stable plant growth, so farming pressures become less. And finally, third, with the ability to easily establish hearths, create shelters, and not be drastically affected by the climate, the benefits of a nomadic life, such as exploring new territories and harnessing various resources, might continue to outweigh the advantages of settling down. Essentially, if you can make new homes easily, why stay stuck in one place? If you follow this historical path, you might never go through an agricultural revolution, and your civilization could be one that continues to move from place to place, establishing new homes every season. This would obviously be a drastic historical change. In a world where the very foundation of civilization, sedentism and the agricultural revolution, is sidestepped due to the prevalence and the power of magic, cultures, societies, and histories would undeniably take a profoundly different trajectory. So, here's the things I think would most dramatically change. Instead of great cities with towering walls and sprawling streets, societies might construct mobile megalithic structures, monuments or homes that can be moved or disassembled and reassembled quickly. These structures might be imbued with magic to ease their transport, or they could be made of materials influenced by the spirits or constructed in ways that optimize elementum consumption users to manipulate and reconstruct them. Without the permanence of agricultural plots to tie groups to a specific location, territories would be ever changing. This could lead to a more fluid concept of borders, with regions defined more by roaming paths of groups than fixed landmarks. Conflicts might still arise over things like temporary rights to grazing or resource-rich areas, especially under elementum consumption. So you'd have fights over rights to access areas rather than ownership of the land per se. With groups constantly moving and mingling, there might be a rich tapestry of shared knowledge, stories, and traditions. This could also lead to a faster spread of innovation and ideas. So, rather than technology not developing, I think technology might develop faster, though it would be different technology from what we have. You wouldn't have farming driving technology, so you wouldn't invent plows and so on. Instead, you would have travel and magic driving technology. But as I always say, ideas don't thrive in a vacuum, and nomads with magic traveling around the planet would definitely give ideas plenty of people to come into touch with and to grow, expand, and change. A constantly roaming civilization would also have access to a diverse range of food, ensuring a varied diet. Combined with potentially health benefits from magic, such a society might have a higher life expectancy and better overall health compared to sedentary agricultural societies. And without agriculture to dominate and reshape the land, there might be a heightened reverence for nature. This would be even more pronounced given the intimate relationship with the spirits if you go for something like spirit seal magic. Societies might develop codes of conduct or ethics centered around respecting the land and taking only what they need, especially with regards to the elemental system that consumes part of nature, like our elemental consumption. Overuse or hogging of a resource might result in other tribes banding together to deal with a tribe that is seen as trespassing against nature. Now, this isn't obviously necessary. It might be that people just grow into over exploitative, societies, but one can hope. In such a world where magic is so dominant, trade would obviously still exist, but it might be more barter based. And certainly in things like elemental consumption, the trade of elemental items would form a core part. In the spirit seal, knowledge, how to importune the spirits, would be a core part of any trade that happens between shamans and tribes. Animals could also still play a key role in this kind of society, mounts for transportation, and so on. And with magic in the mix, especially with spirit seal magic, you could have animals becoming domesticated and becoming part of the tribes and their traveling lifestyle. And for my thoughts on steppe nomads and that kind of nomadic culture, check out the information card. So, even in this kind of society, I think there would still be a clear hierarchy based on your affinity to the spirits or on your elemental abilities. And I think that this would influence roles within the group, decision making power, and even mating dynamics. I think these kinds of societies would definitely still develop those hierarchies. However, because everyone lives essentially cheek to jowl and travels together, I don't think the hierarchies would become as stratified as what we see emerging after the agricultural revolution in our world. In essence, while cultures in this magic dominated world might seem alien to our agrarian history, they would still be shaped by the basic human needs for connection, purpose, sustenance, and understanding. It would be a world of motion where the journey is just as, if not even more important than the destination. It could be really fun to build and write in such a world because it would be such a different take on civilization and on world building, and it would make such a clear difference to the impact of magic on your world. But I am not convinced that the agricultural revolution wouldn't happen. So let's talk about why the agricultural revolution would still happen. 1. While magic could make nomadic life easier, the growth of communities around hearths and the increased interaction between groups could lead to a desire for more stability. Agriculture offers a sedentary life, allowing communities to grow and flourish. Even with magic, if your tribe grows big enough, it becomes a real chore to move them from place to place. 2. Relying solely on the spirits or on elemental magic might provide inconsistent harvests, especially if it required sacrifices or you start running out of elemental components. So, using magic for minor tasks might be impractical or detrimental to the community's health. Growing one's food and rearing animals might then become a more reliable in the long run approach. So you would save magic for bigger things and use agriculture for day-to-day survivability. And 3, having fixed plots of land with crops could provide for trading opportunities. These fertile lands might become influential, leading to early dynamics of power and politics and leading to the agricultural revolution. So, what do you think? Would we still have an agricultural revolution with these kinds of magic system? Or would we remain a hunter-gatherer, nomadic or semi-nomadic society? Let me know in the comments below, and let's assume that we do have an agricultural revolution and talk about the changes that magic introduces in a Neolithic society. The Neolithic era, or the New Stone Age, was marked by the emergence of settled agriculture, the domestication of plants and animals, and the formation of early cities. Introducing magic into this landscape changes the dynamics of growth and innovation. So let's delve into those ramifications of our magic system, starting with spirit seal magic. The introduction of spirit seal magic to early agriculture would have been profound. Farmers wouldn't just till and sow, but would perform rituals to ask earth spirits to nourish the soil and rain spirits to quench the thirsty crops. And these rituals would have an effect. And this would result in fields that were more fertile and crops that yielded more than their non-magical counterparts in our world. And that bounty would allow settlements to grow and thrive far faster than in our world. On the animal domestication side of the equation, the process would see shamans communing with animal spirits to make wild beasts more docile. This might lead to the domestication of animals that we typically can't domesticate because we can't overcome their kind of wild instincts. And over time, this could also lead to certain animals being seen as spirit-touched and revered. And it would certainly speed up the domestication process, which again leads to settlements growing faster and becoming more prosperous. Preservation of food became a concern with larger communities, but spirits can alleviate this as well. Particularly those of earth and air could be sought to protect granaries from decay, pests, or any form of spoilage. Furthermore, fertility rituals where spirits were asked to bless couples to ensure the growth of settlements might become commonplace. And that again would lead to a faster growth of the population and of settlements. On the dark side of this magic, this entire civilization is fueled by magic, which is fueled by sacrifice under the spirit seal rule. With the rise of these complex rituals and increasing demands as society becomes more complex, the sacrifices become grander. Seasonal festivals emerge dedicated to giving thanks or appeasing spirits. And human sacrifice, though controversial, begins to appear, especially when seeking favor for particularly challenging times or for significant tasks. As settlements grow into early cities, the need for protection increases. Leaders or shamans start to request mountain or river spirits to protect their cities from natural calamities like floods or landslides. Some cities even have protective barriers believed to be imbued with spirits. Early cities become city-states. Temples dedicated to specific spirits begin to emerge. Priests and priestesses act as intermediaries between the common folk and the spirits, creating the hierarchical and stratified societies. And as city-states start to brush up against each other, wars happen. And the victorious side starts capturing and sacrificing the losing side to the spirits to provide the magic for their city-state. And if you want my thoughts on cultures that have human sacrifice, check out my video on when the gods are angry. Okay, so that's a quick peek at spirit seal magic and how that kind of magic could change a Neolithic society. But let's take a look at elementium consumption and the Neolithic society. Earth manipulators make land cultivation more manageable by tilling vast tracts of field, ensuring the soil is fertile. Meanwhile, water manipulators ensure a consistent supply of water, making irrigation predictable. And this deal ensures that crops are not left to the whims of nature, making the agricultural practice a more precise science. Fire continues to play a crucial role, and indeed we might hit the Bronze Age far earlier as smelting is easier with control of fire. Air manipulators help in reducing storms or drying food for preservation. With the elemental substances' importance in everyday life, they start becoming part of religious and cultural rites. The consumption of a particular element becomes a rite of passage in some cultures. Temples dedicated to the four basic elements begin to appear, with some settlements favoring one over the other based on their geographical location and the needs of that settlement. City-states start emerging, with walls built by earth manipulators and moats created by water manipulators. And as our city-states start to brush up against each other, wars break out, with fire manipulators serving as artillery and air manipulators using storms to great effect or serving as the army's aerial scouts. The hierarchy of cities revolves around the proficiency in elementum consumption. Those who can manipulate multiple elements are revered and often hold significant position. Temples and schools dedicated to mastering this art begin to appear, making elementum consumption central to the Neolithic societal structure. On the dark side, the depletion of elemental substances leads to societal upheaval, migrations, and conflicts. The sea people's coming might very well be because they have used up all of their elemental components. In either situation, I think you would see an era we could recognize as the Neolithic world. Magic would make a big difference to the speed of development, I think, but the fundamentals would stay the same as it was in our world. That is to say, there would still be settlements that grow into city-states. Society would still become more hierarchical after the agricultural revolution, and you would still see the growth of organized religion, leadership, and economies. And if you want my views on the Neolithic society in our world, check out my video on the topic in the information card. In terms of the rest of the ages that follow on from the Neolithic, it's hard to do an alternative history without taking into consideration more variables than I have time for in this video. Even just looking at our two magic systems, it is clear that many parts of history would be affected. Earth manipulators could facilitate road building. Or under Spirit Seal, spirits could guide ships or even propel them across the ocean, leading to great ocean voyages. Science and exploration could be fueled by magic with technology powered by the spirits or by the elements. However, over-reliance on magic could create a population where some technological advances are just never reached. If you never need matches, why would you invent them? What about guns? Would you ever invent them? And so on and so forth. These are questions that each world builder needs to answer for themselves in terms of which technologies would be invented and which would be replaced by magic. And those are my thoughts on early civilizations and magic. If you like this video, consider giving it a super thanks or becoming a channel member for these cool perks. Also, before you leave, check out my video on domestication of animals in fantasy worlds. Clicking on the recommended video helps the algorithm know that my channel is loved. So please, clicky.